Hello, backpackers. This is Juan from Juan Backpacks, and I'm here to talk to you about my logistics for getting into the Tahoe Rim Trail this year. In just a few short weeks from now, I'm going to be heading from central Pennsylvania the whole way to the west coast in South Lake Tahoe to hike the 170 miles, a through hike of the Tahoe Rim Trail. I've been out to the Sierra many times for fly fishing and backpacking and just for fun. And so it's a trip I'm really used to doing. And I'm not going to go over like all the details of who you could use and those kind of things. It's more or less just this overall feel for the logistics. When I do trips like this, I like to plan, but I don't like to over plan. And I've kind of got this kind of balance that I use, because when I over plan, I don't feel like I'm relaxing. I don't feel like I'm enjoying myself. And I like to have a little bit more open-endedness to things. And I'm lucky because I do have the flexibility to give myself a little bit more time. Not much. I'm still under some constraints, but I do give myself a little bit extra time on the front end and the back end of all my trips. Especially to the Sierra, because I give myself a time on the front end so I can acclimate, because I'm coming from about 800 feet above sea level and I'm going to like 9,000, 10,000 feet. And so I really need to acclimate. So I give myself a couple, 2-3 days to do that on the front end. And then I like to give myself 2 or 3 days on the back end, honestly, to relax and enjoy the local stuff that you want to enjoy. One of my favorite towns in the Eastern Sierra is Bishop, California is just the bomb. Love that place. I've spent many days there on my trips this year for both backpacking and fly fishing, and also Lone Pine, man. Lone Pine is cool too. So there's a lot of cool places, a lot of cool things to see out there. And so I want to enjoy some things on both ends. So here are my logistics. Coming out of Central PA, I could have used a smaller airport, or I had the decision to use a small airport or use a bigger metropolitan airport in either DC area or in the Baltimore area. And I chose to use one of the airports out of the DC area. And the reason I did that is because all of the landing times for the flights out of my area, which is a very small airport, were late in the evening, like late at night, like 10:30 at night. Couldn't get any earlier landing times in my target airport, which is Reno International. The problem with that is if I land too late in Reno International, I actually have to burn a whole day there, burn a whole night there, and I missed that whole day just traveling, and I have to stay in Reno and then try to get to Tahoe. And I really only have 2 days, 1 day of travel, 1 day cushion to get my food supply done. And then the next day I'm going on trail. And so that was really important for me to get there soon enough in Reno where I could get a shuttle or a rental car to South Lake Tahoe, where I'm going to supply and stay overnight in enough time to do some things and not waste that day. So I'm flying out of one of the airports near DC, landing in Reno early enough in the day, pretty early in the day, where I can basically hop on a shuttle and go to South Lake Tahoe. The shuttle that I'm using, just so you know, it seems like a good shuttle. It's got when I was looking at it, it had 3 different times that you could catch a shuttle to South Lake Tahoe, and it's the South Tahoe Airporter, it's called. And it was about $35 to get a shuttle from the airport down to South Lake Tahoe. I'll say that typically in the past, I've rented cars, but now just one-way rentals are hard to get out of airports, and they a lot of times will add in an extra fee, and in addition, the costs are much higher than they used to be. And so for me, it just wasn't worth it given the trip that I'm doing. Yes, a car, I love having a car because it gives me a lot more flexibility with shopping and seeing things and just kind of doing what I want to do. But I thought in this case it really wasn't worth it, because I'm only spending 2 days in Reno or in South Lake Tahoe before I leave on the trail. So I'll hit that shuttle from Reno early enough in the day where I'll be able to get to South Lake Tahoe. I get dropped off in the shuttle. There's a lot of options. I think I'm getting dropped off at the Hard Rock. And then I've got a couple nights already booked at the Mellow Mountain Hostel. And I really have never stayed at a true hostel. And I just wanted to have that experience. Typically when I'm in Tahoe, I stay at a hotel. And so I thought that would be nice. And plus, I'm backpacking and I don't need a lot of amenities going in. So I'll stay at the hostel for a couple nights. And then, during that time, I'll do some shopping, do some gear. There are things that I can't fly with, like canisters and some other items that I don't fly with that are simple, cheap items that I'll buy when I'm in Tahoe. I'm familiar with a lot of stores, the outdoor store there. I've been there a number of times, and I can get all that stuff there. And then also, obviously grocery stores, and I can pick up some, my 5 days of supplies I need. Doing the Tahoe Rim Trail and the entire trail in 10 days. And so I've split my resupplies up into 5 days and 5 days. And so when I'm coming out of South Lake Tahoe, I need 5 days of food in my bear can. And so I'll shop for 5 days of food. And those like about a day and a half I'll have there in South Lake Tahoe. During that second full day I got in South Lake Tahoe, that's when I'm really going to start to think about how to get to the trail head that I'm hiking out of. And it's more than likely I'll do like an Uber or a taxi cab or something like that, something simple. One other thing I might need to do on that day that I have, a full day to work on things, is that I might need to take water to a certain point in the trail, depending on the water situation. And so that's another thing that I might need to accomplish along with the shopping and checking in my gear and so forth in that one full big day. So it really is nice that I'll have like a half a day and then a full day to do these things. Plus, I'm also acclimating to the to the altitude. I think South Lake Tahoe is about 7,000 feet of elevation, something like that. And so that gets me there for a couple days before I hit the trail. So once I hit the trail with my food and the gear that I had to buy that I couldn't fly with, and I'll do a video about flying with my gear. I think I have a unique way of doing it. I've flown for fly fishing across the country, different locations, and for backpacking. And I have a way that I do it because if you've ever lost your gear, which I have, it's gone someplace else, you know how can kind of wreck a thing. If you got a permit or you got something booked that has to be done on that time, it's costing you money. And so I've got a way of flying with my gear so that if something happens with the things I've checked, it's not a big deal and I can recover from it. And I'll show you that in another video. So I'll leave for the trailhead. I'll do 5 days on trail. And then I have another resupply 5 days in, planned at Tahoe City. And so I'll resupply at Tahoe City. I hear there's a grocery store there, places to resupply. I'll go ahead and do that, get another 5 days of food. I'm not a picky eater. I don't need certain things. I got some basic stuff that I need, and that's it. And so I'll resupply and then head on my way to finish out the trail. Now, when I get off trail, what do? Typically, when I've done the John Muir Trail and the High Sierra Trail, I did not purchase my return flight tickets until I was sure I was off trail, especially with the John Muir Trail, because I took an entire month off work to do that. And I really didn't want to hurry myself in like 16, 17, or 18 days. I wanted to do as many days as I wanted to do out on trail. And so I didn't even pin myself into a return flight. What I did for this one, I know that I have a certain time frame, so I did get a return flight on the outside envelope of that. I've left myself about 3 full days once I get off trail to just get reoriented, stay at a hotel a few nights, get showered, relax, go to some restaurants. And, I'm big on that on the tail end of trips. The first part, I do it mainly because of acclimation when I'm going to the Sierra. The second part, the second, piece where I'm getting off trail, typically I just want to spend time in a town. So again, like Bishop or Lone Pine or South Lake Tahoe or, whatever it is, an Incline City, whatever it is, I want to, Truckee is an awesome town out there too that I've hung out at. It's always nice to have 2 or 3 days or even 4 days after you get off trail. Plus it gives me a little bit of cushion in case it takes me an extra day to get off trail, or even 2 days, I'm still fine. So I do have a return flight booked. What I do with my return flight though, logistically, is this. I do not make my return flights leaving early in the mornings. As a matter of fact, I always try to do like a red eye out, right? So it's kind of like I do like an 8 p.m. Flight out, something like that, something around like 8ish out, because I don't want to be rushed the day, especially if I'm coming pretty far away to, like, I'm going to the Reno airport to leave. That's quite a trip. It's an hour or so, and a lot can happen with buses and things like that. As a matter of fact, when I did the High Sierra Trail last year, There were a bunch of people on our on the Eastern shuttle bus that we took to Reno that literally were going. I think some of them missed their flight, and the others were possibly going to miss their flight because the bus got delayed for a couple reasons, and they had backed up their bus drop off time with their flight time, right? So much that any delay for some of them, they'd miss their flight. And so I don't like to do that. So I like to have that huge cushion. I can get up in the morning, eat breakfast in Tahoe, you know, leisurely pack gear, get on a bus, get on a shuttle, go to Reno. And if I have to sit there for 3 hours, so be it. You know what I mean? I'll sit there, have some coffee, and relax a little bit more. And people watch at the airport, right, till my flight is ready to leave. So I fly out later in the day. That's one of my tricks that I do. I know that sometimes if you have, you know, logistics issues, and you got to get someplace, you know, at a certain time, I understand that. But if you do have the ability to push it back to later in the day, I always do that because it just reduces the chance I'm going to miss that flight out because of some hitch in my public transportation. You know, I'd have more confidence if I was just driving myself, like driving the rental car back to the airport. I wouldn't probably do that, but in this case, I do because I'm relying on somebody else to get me there and the logistics of somebody else. So at any rate, that is my plan for getting into the Sierra and back out of the Sierra. You can see it's a good, solid plan. You know, there's pieces that I've booked and handled along the way, but again, that flexibility coming out of the trail for me is big. And this is actually the first time in a long time that I've actually booked a return flight. Again, typically, like, you know, literally when we were going out of coming out of Yosemite 2 years ago when I did the John Muir Trail northbound. I'm literally looking at flights. My son and I were literally looking at flights on my phone, sitting in Yosemite. You know, on our last 5 miles of the trail, we got some cell phone reception, and solid cell phone reception, as a matter of fact, and literally booked our flights because we knew when we get back, we knew how many days we need to get to Reno, and we were able to book our flights. So I usually leave that pretty wide open. Did that on the High Sierra Trail. We spent, you know, a day in Lone Pine. We spent 2 or 3 days in Bishop, California, which again, favorite town on the Eastern Sierra for me. But at any rate, that's it, folks. That's my plan, my logistics plan. Again, I didn't go into a lot of like real fine detail, but you can just see my thought process with my logistics. And so hopefully that helps some of you kind of think through the process a little bit. You know, until next time, backpackers, get out there and do some backpacking, do some hiking, stop watching YouTube videos, unless they're my videos, then watch them all from start to finish. Later, backpackers.